All right, everyone, welcome to the fifth episode of the Reserve Squad. Today it's Andy and myself, Cameron here. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It's Sunday evening. I just want to talk about the match week, the FA Cup, everything that's going on in soccer as everything comes to an end here in the Premier League. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Reserve Squad and on YouTube. Go ahead and type in the Reserve Squad and you'll see us right there. You'll see everything from our Transfer Tuesdays to our main panel podcast. Speaking of that, you can notice that there's two less faces here today, but we push through and we make it happen, right? Got to do it what they want. So big week in terms of promotion out of the championship. Congratulations to Leeds, first time since 2003, 2004. They're in the Premier League. It's been a 16-year wait. It's a massive thing for football or soccer, and happy to have them back. So Leeds, congratulations. It's definitely not an easy task to get out of the championship. I know that personally as a fan. So more power to you, and I wish you the best of luck next year. Second place is up for grabs. We have West Brom, Brentford, and Fulham all in the mix for that automatic promotion. For those of you who don't know, two teams automatically go up to the Premier League. Whoever finishes first and second in the championship automatically go up to the Premier League. And then the third place has a whole different realm, and Andy will get into that in a second. So for second place, you have West Brom, Brentford, and Fulham. Two West London teams, two teams I don't like, but I cannot wait to see how it pans out. It's exciting. West Brom play QPR this weekend, so hopefully we can spoil their parade a little bit. But at the same time, I don't want to because there's Brentford in the mix, who I don't like, and they play a very bottom table team. So we'll see how it goes. And then Andy, give us an idea on kind of how third place works in the championship and how you get promoted and who's in the mix.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So as everyone knows, three teams from the championship get promoted up into the English Premier League at the end of the season. First and second, as Cam mentioned before, those teams are already locked. They're guaranteed promotion. And then teams 3 through 6 end up playing in a playoff match. Essentially, it goes into a semifinal matchup between all four of the teams. And then the winner of each of those games will play up into the final, and the winning team will get promoted. And they will move on into the Premier League. So it's kind of exciting. It adds a unique element to where anyone from 3rd through 6th could potentially go to the Premier League. Right now, as Cam mentioned, Brentford is kind of fighting for second place right now, so they are in that spot to potentially not have to play in the playoff. But as it's currently stacking right now, we have Brentford with 81 points, Fulham in 4th with 80 points, Nottingham Forest 70 points in 5th place, and then we have in 6th place we have Cardiff with 70 points as well. Swansea is 3 points down from them, so there is still a possibility that they could move up, but they would need Cardiff City to lose by quite a margin, and then they would need to score quite a bit themselves. I'm not sure what the actual goal differential is, but right now it's looking like it'll be Brentford, Fulham, Nottingham, and Cardiff City. So it'll be an exciting tournament. We'll have to give you a play-by-play update as we get more information and as it kind of finalizes, but as of for now, kudos to Leeds. You guys have a lot of history in the English Premier League, and we're looking forward to having you back.
Definitely. And I think the interesting thing about the playoff here is that every team that you just mentioned has been in the Premier League in the past, recent past, other than maybe Brentford. So it's definitely a top table that we're used to seeing, like name-wise, and it's just good for football. It's good for soccer. So definitely excited to see where it goes.
So Cam, as the championship is wrapping up, though, are there any key things that we should be looking out for? I know you're a big championship fan, follower of QPR. So what are some things that we should look out to in the final week?
There's a lot, actually. So West Brom play QPR. That's my team, Queen's Park Rangers. We're the West London team. A small club, but we score a lot. We have awful defense. So it wouldn't surprise me if West Brom can pull away with a win, but it also wouldn't surprise me if we just rain on their parade. And Brentford's take that second place spot because Brentford have the best defense in the championship with a crazy goal differential. So defense wins games. That's clear in all sports across the board. So it wouldn't surprise me if Brentford plays Barnsley, who's a very non-impressive team, and wins, and West Brom get forced into that playoff. And Fulham play Wigan. Wigan just went bankrupt. So in soccer, what happens is you go into administration, and if that happens, you actually suffer on your standings. So they take a 12-point drop. So they could drop, and let's say for American sports terms, from AAA baseball down to AA baseball instead of going up to MLB like the teams we're talking about, right? So they could get relegated if they don't win. So they have a lot at stake in this Fulham game. These players aren't even getting paid right now, so it's very impressive what they're doing. But they could ruin Fulham just so they can have their own day, their own pleasure. So a lot going on in the championship, and it's going to be a juicy weekend. So I just can't wait to see it all. I wish I had access to all the games because I'd watch those instead of Premier League. I really would,
So do you think QPR are going to upset West Brom?
I think we draw West Brom, and I think Brentford win. So
yeah,
I think
Brentford are playing Barnsley, and Barnsley are sitting 23rd, second from the bottom. Not looking a little bit likely there, but I wouldn't put it past the Queen's Park Rangers in order to pull it off against them and spoil the party just a little bit and force West Brom to play in the tournament.
I wouldn't either. We have the second best offense. We have some very impressive players, some that will be leaving the squad at the end of the year. So I'd love to see us go on with a bang and just put our staple on the league, even if it's not us going up. But West Brom got a solid team. They're full of old Premier League players. Charlie Austin, an old QPR boy himself. So I'd love to see West Brom go up too. Anyone but Brentford, they're full of. So we'll see.
Even though it's looking pretty likely for Brentford.
Yeah, and the playoff is going to be crazy. So just excited to see it all kind of unfold. But in saying that, there's a lot unfolding in the Premier League. Let's get to the rundown of the scores of the week, and then we'll go ahead and break down some games and our thoughts on those. So Spurs beat Newcastle at the beginning of the week. So last time we spoke on Monday, we last spoke about Chelsea beating Norwich to make sure they got points for Champions League competition. So Spurs beat Newcastle 3-1. Spurs have had a great week. Wolves tied Burnley, which unfortunately knocked Wolves out of European competition for Champions League and Europa.
That was a good Burnley game, though. That was a very exciting game to watch, I will say.
Definitely. And Burnley's very impressive. They have one of the best goalkeepers in the league. He's a promising English goalkeeper. He has 15 clean sheets, I believe. Insane. And they have a great defense.
He passed Ederson, too, for most clean sheets of the season so far.
Yeah, so he's on track for the Golden Glove, as they call it, for keepers, for best keeper of the year, most shutouts. And they have a great defense. They finally got some goal production in their squad. So good on them because they've been in the Premier League for a few years. I'm glad to see they're eighth now. So gotta respect that. It's not an easy feat in the Premier League. And then you have Man City beating Bournemouth during the week, 2-1. No one expected Bournemouth to get points there. Arsenal beat
Liverpool. Playing.
Yeah, thanks for playing. Thanks for showing up. We'll take those 3 points. And then you had Arsenal beat Liverpool, and maybe a shocking win. Just not expecting that, I guess. But who knows what Liverpool you get.
It was a great week for Arsenal, man. FA Cup too. Great week for Arsenal.
And they played a good game, and I thought that was a good prep match maybe for the FA Cup,
Good little momentum that Arteta's able to get out of his players. So it'll be exciting to see how the end of the season plays out.
Yeah, and they're giving them money to spend in the offseason. So really interested in seeing what Arsenal put together in the next, 6-7 weeks here. And then you had Everton tying Aston Villa in a 1-1 draw. Villa had the lead up until the 88th minute. They need points. They're in the relegation battle. You almost hated to see that goal go in. But at the same time, Everton are very underwhelming right now, and they should have wiped the floor with Villa. So a draw there.
They were pressing pretty heavily in that second half, especially toward the end too. So a goal was deserved, I will say. But you definitely hate to see Villa have their hopes up so high and then have it get torn away toward the end.
But that's the life of the Premier League. It really is. And you're a United fan. You've had a tough few years, you could even say. So you take the losses as they come and just hope for the best. But Villa, that was tough to watch. But more disappointing things happened. We'll get to it. And then you had Leicester beating Sheffield 2-0. So that didn't really knock Sheffield out of the discussion. Or no, it completely knocked Sheffield out of the discussion, excuse me. But Leicester got a win when they needed points, even though they haven't looked impressive. And then you had Southampton tying Brighton 1-1. Does it matter? Yes, because Brighton's close to the bottom. Danny Ings got on the score sheet for the Golden Boot, best goal scorer for those who don't know. And then Man United beat Palace 2-0 in a game that I thought that's probably the best game of the week out of all the games we just spoke about.
Yeah, I mean, Crystal, credit to Palace. Palace drove against Man United very hard. Unfortunately for Palace, United just got the goals and they were able to kind of uphold it, but they weren't able to be clinical, unfortunately, and so that's how it ended up being sought out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Palace are second lowest in the league when it comes to goals scored, so it's almost impressive that they're not in the relegation battle, to say the least. So them not scoring doesn't.
Zaha had a great game.
Zaha had a fantastic game. He looked great. Zaha is the star of Crystal Palace. There's a lot of speculation about where he's going to go in the future. So it was good to see him perform against an in-form United. And, hopefully the discussion on Transfer Tuesdays only get more and more about Zaha, right? Because he's worth the money. Frankie.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, and Frankie is quoted top 5 dribblers in the world. Those are his quotes, not mine. But so it just speaks volumes to what people think about him. So it was a great game to watch. Thought it could have easily been a draw, but United pulled it out, and that's what you got to do. So then we have the big games. Friday we talked about in the last podcast. We had a whole Instagram story about the preview. West Ham versus Watford. It was built up to be a great match, and then Watford go ahead and just blow it in the first 10 minutes. West Ham take a 2-0 lead, and the game ends up 3-1. Andy, what are your thoughts on West Ham versus Watford?
West Ham. West Ham have just been the team in form right now. I mean, other than United, you've got to argue that West Ham have been the team in form. They've been winning a lot of crazy games, and this one was just a little bit no different. So Antonio, he was very clinical early, and he put them on the forefront, and that forced Watford to kind of open up a little bit, and West Ham was able to kind of pick those pockets and just continue to keep scoring goals. It was 2-0 after about 10 minutes of the game when Souček had a beautiful cross in from Bowen and was able to put that one in the back of the net. So you have to wonder, Watford were definitely just kind of dragged down a little bit for most of the game, being 2-0 down, especially after 10 minutes. But and then obviously Declan Rice with that 25-yard cracker before half to make it 3-0. What a beautiful goal. Great shot from Declan. I think he's definitely going to go to a good club if he doesn't leave Watford. And then, Deeney got the rebound off of Decore's run in order to give them a consolation goal, which made it 3-1. But Watford had their chances. I mean, Dawson had a nice header in the first half. Sarr had a couple chances and a couple drives that he drove in. But ultimately, West Ham was able to pull up the win. And now Watford's going to have to play City. And then West Ham will play United, which will definitely be an interesting game. Cam, what was your take on the game? What did you think of it?
So I thought So the first 15 minutes of the game, I was like, I can be away from my TV. Nothing's going to happen, And then a quick early goal goes in from Antonio, and I was like, man, I really just missed that. And then I saw the Souček goal. Jared Bowen gets a lot of flack from the English fan base. Jared Bowen plays on the right side for West Ham on the wing. And I guess for some reason his career hasn't turned out the way it was supposed to. He's been hackled by injuries. But he's had a great project restart. Since COVID, he's been playing great for David Moyes. So I was really happy to see him get that assist. Souček, great header. And if you watch the game or the highlights, you'll see he had great communication with his midfield. He's pointing at someone like, you stay back, I'm going to go up. And he's like a 6'3 midfielder, so he's perfect for put that ball in his head, he's going to put it in the net, And he did it. And Watford, very unimpressive. Ben Foster had a rough game and goal, which is pretty rare for him, I would say. He's one of the
high line for no reason. Did you happen to see that a couple times? It was you looked over and they're passing it back to their defenders, or there was like an instant clearance, and you see Ben Foster is like 18 yards outside of his 18-yard box, and they almost chipped him like twice.
Yeah, and sometimes it's great when your goalie plays sweeper, but when you're a relegation team, you're probably not looking for that, right? You're looking for production from the front, not from the back. And unimpressive game by him, and he's a guy who's kept him in games all year. And let's not forget, Watford just fired their manager this morning. So crazy situation at Watford right now. I don't know where it goes. Troy Deeney is a staple in the program and their squad. I was happy to see him get on goal and just pick that ball up and run back. But other than Sarr, none of them looked impressive, really. Not even Deeney. He just got lucky, if you ask me.
Yeah, it was a rebound. I mean, I thought Decore had a couple moments where he shined. He got in a couple pockets of space and was able to set up a couple chances for other players to kind of create. But, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it was just not the game Watford wanted, and that was definitely a game that they wanted to own. What are your thoughts on the whole Nigel Pearson sacking? What do you think about that?
I think with 2 games left, it's absolutely not the right move. He's gotten you out of relegation for the meantime. You might as well stick with him, especially when you have Villa and Bournemouth. And we'll get to Bournemouth in a minute, but neither team really looks like they're going to break through. And this guy got you, I think, at least 15 points. I might be reaching for saying he got you 15 points, but Nigel Pearson got you back in the mix and out of the mix, right? So I don't like it. What do you think?
I'm of the same opinion. I think it's a little bit premature. I mean, they're definitely not looking too great, but you got to factor they were last place when Nigel Pearson took over, and then he came into the side and put them 3 points clear at the top so far. So, yeah, while they're not winning a lot, I still think that he at least deserved to see it through the end of the season, and then they can kind of reassess the situation for next year afterwards. But with all the money that they've spent, there's a couple other issues at Watford that they kind of need to handle out with first. And I thought Nigel Pearson was a great coach for them. Granted, he didn't have the best spell in the last couple of games, but I still thought he should have at least been able to see it through.
Yeah, I mean, and they're riddled by injuries. When you have someone like De La Feu out, was used to be a starlet, and he's had a great time in the Premier League. He's all about assists and creative soccer. Having him out hurts when you don't have a lot of offense. So I think it's harsh. I think it was a harsh move. And you expect a small team like Watford to stick with their guns, but they're going on their 4th manager in 3 years now. So should we really be surprised?
Yeah, that's true. But it'll be interesting too. And the one thing I want to highlight for West Ham as well is that they're playing this well, and they haven't been playing Felipe Anderson as much either. So with as good of a side that they've been without even playing him, I mean, you got to figure. I'm a United fan. I'm worrying about that West Ham United game coming up this upcoming Wednesday. So It'll be interesting to see. But I think West Ham do have a good chance to make a run here. But I'm hoping United just stops them. But we'll see.
Yeah, West Ham could completely clear relegation, I think, with the draw. Mm-hmm. So if West Ham walks away in a 2-2 draw, which I don't see United giving up 2 goals to them, it's amazing for West Ham. I think Felipe Anderson is like this guy who has all this gossip around him and stuff like that. And to see them doing well without him hinders his reputation a little bit, maybe. So that's a good Transfer Tuesday topic. But West Ham look good. Antonio on the score sheet left and right. Declan Rice, we all know what he brings to the table. He's Chelsea outcast, goes to West Ham, performs, kills it, and now he finally scores like a wonder goal for him. It was just great to see.
That was a beautiful goal. I watched that a couple times over. I had to replay it a couple times.
And just seeing how excited he is, like once again, like
the
Tyler,
passion's there.
Yeah, and like Tyler said, how can you not be rooting for West Ham right now? So it's 3-1, well deserved. Good on you, West Ham.
We could definitely talk about West Ham a little bit because they got to play United coming up. There's a lot to talk about. We could probably handle next week, but we'll kind of transition this a little bit and we'll talk about a little game that happened a little bit before the FA Cup. You had Spurs beating Leicester 3-0. Cam, you want to give me a quick rundown on what your thoughts of that game?
To be real, I don't. I really don't because I'm rooting for Leicester to get Champions League because I have a bet with Tyler. So, but I have to, right? Kane got the brace, 2 goals, 1 beautiful goal. Counterattacking football at its best. Jose Mourinho has to be pleased for probably the first time all year, and can't wait to see that documentary.
I think this is the first after interview on Jose Mourinho where he wasn't complaining about VAR.
Yes, right, and since Project Restart. But very disappointing from Leicester. Brendan Rodgers has to be in that locker room, very upset with his team. They've been drug into a battle that they don't need to be in with how clear they were on points. Now they're fighting to hold on to their position with Man United tied with them on their heels, 62 points. Here's what I have a problem with. Leicester had 71% possession. So from a Mourinho side at Tottenham, the manager of Tottenham, by the way, that is exactly what he expects out of his team. 1 goal, and then let's park the bus. No one's getting past us. We're going to play defense, right? So very typical Mourinho style. Brendan Rodgers knows this. I didn't feel like Brendan Rodgers was creative enough. And I also feel like Leicester wasn't creative enough. They had 8 shots off target, 6 shots on, and they only scored 1. With a team with a golden boot front runner in your squad, just not good enough. It's not good enough. Get the ball to Vardy, make it work. Like I hate to say it's that simple, but it is. I know he's being double teamed, things like that, but Brendan Rodgers just has to be upset with the squad and his performance. But that's my takeaway, really. 2 goals from Harry Kane. One was a beauty. Brendan Rodgers got to be upset. Leicester didn't perform. Underwhelming. Not what I wanted for my bet. What about you?
So it's kind of interesting because while I agree with you, I mean, Leicester just didn't. They produced quite a bit of chances. They had tons of opportunities. There were definitely quite a few opportunities that they could have put in the back of the net, but you could just feel that they just weren't as lethal in their offensive third. And that's something shocking because they've definitely been lethal in that area this whole entire season. But I have to say that they played right into Jose Mourinho and Tottenham's style. Jose Mourinho is definitely a defensive type coach. He likes to absorb all that pressure and then counterattack football, and that's exactly what ended up happening in this game. Leicester had most of the possession, like you mentioned. They were mostly in Tottenham's defensive third for most of the game, but how it ended up turning out was that they were able to create good transition play. Son was open, Kane was making some opportunities happen, and those counterattacks were absolutely lethal from Tottenham. And, kudos to Harry Kane. He has not been good since the restart, so it was really good to see him bag a brace in that game. His first goal was pretty nice, but his second goal was absolutely amazing. He was able to get that curler in with his right foot shot on the left-hand side. It was good to see. So, good signs for Tottenham, but I have to say that Leicester kind of played into Tottenham's hand a little bit because Jose Mourinho's style is all defensive, and that's exactly how it ended up panning out. But Leicester had their chances. They drove well, but those counters were absolutely lethal. And I think that's kind of trouble for Leicester because then as they go into play Man U, that's exactly how Man U plays too. They are lethal on the counterattack, and they have a lot to play for. So Brendan Rodgers is going to have to come up with a pretty good strategy for United because if they come out with that offensive strategy that they had against Tottenham, it'll definitely be an interesting turn of events for Leicester.
I feel the exact same way. I think Brendan Rodgers got outcoached today. He knew what Mourinho was going to bring to the table, and he still didn't perform. So at the end of the day, I don't want to put this on one guy, but I think as a manager, you can't have almost double the amount of touches on the ball. And if you look at their passes completed, 609 for Leicester and 208 for Tottenham. So almost triple passes completed, and you're not putting the ball in the back of the net more than once. That's just not good soccer. So,
but Paris should have had 2 opportunities. Vardy should have had an opportunity. Iheanacho had an opportunity. Harvey Barnes got into a couple key spots that I remember watching the game. I mean, their chances were there. They just weren't lethal.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No final third success at the end of the day. It's really what it comes down to, and that's soccer. You're right. Yeah. I think Man U has a solid chance of getting in the championship now, or Champions League now, with a win against them, or even, well, hold on. Goal differential is not in your favor, so
we're dead even.
Got to win, but you got West Ham. You still got West Ham, so I think
Man U's the good thing is, and it's actually a good thing, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but when a team is tied on points, and but someone has to get one of the top spots in order to qualify for Champions League or Europa League. It's first head-to-head, so it takes both of the head-to-head matchups of the teams that are in question when to determine whoever are tied. And then if it's still tied on the head-to-head, then from there it goes to goal differential. So goal differential is important, but the head-to-head is equally as important. And and Leicester lost to Man U 1-0 in the beginning of the season, so. Leicester pretty much need to win this game because if they draw and United and Leicester are tied on goal differential and on points, United would win because of the first win. So it's definitely tight. It could come down to technicalities, and I think it's going to be an interesting last week, and all the teams play at the same time, so it is going to be thrilling, that is for sure.
How big is that Wednesday game? Like, when you think about what happened today with Manchester United, were they even focused about that? And we'll get into that more in the future, but do you think everything's focused on Wednesday after seeing that morning loss? Like, I
definitely think so.
That morning, I don't know. I'm with you.
But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the Spurs, they play Palace this upcoming week, and then Leicester, their next game is against Manchester United. So Spurs and Leicester still got their work cut out for them. I'm not sure if Spurs can. They don't have a chance, I don't think, of making Champions League. So it's looking like they're still fighting for Europa, if they even have a chance at that. So it'll be interesting to see. But the Leicester United game is definitely going to be an interesting one to watch. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think Spurs might even be out of Europa now. But I'm not unsure exactly on the clarification of all that. But yeah, Man U, West Ham on Wednesday, massive game. West Ham have a chance of getting out of relegation fight completely. Manchester United have a chance of putting themselves stapled in the Champions League. And then they play Leicester, who they already have a win against them. So even a draw suffices. You're up on points, everything but lose. But even if you lose head-to-head, it's 1-1. It's about goal differential. So it's just so many technicalities.
So many possibilities, and Leicester are the team to watch because they're central to the whole entire picture here. You know, they played a determining factor, and actually I wanted to draw back because there's one thing I didn't mention about the Spurs and Leicester game was we have to tip your hat off to Hugo Lloris. Hugo Lloris had an absolute monster game. He had 4 pretty crazy saves. He had 5 ended up total for the game, but I'm pretty sure 3 or 4 of them were just top class saves, full extension. So Hugo Lloris definitely had a pretty big game, and he came through for them in a big way.
He looked like the Hugo Lloris who I love to watch, which sometimes it doesn't always happen these days. But you're right, very acrobatic, very reactive, and he had some great saves today. So he definitely kept them not only in front, but he kept them in the game early on. So, tip your hat off to Lloris. So we got one other big game. It happened this morning. It hurt you just hate to see it. Bournemouth loses 2-0 to Southampton. Danny Ings on the score sheet again. Your man. He keeps pushing through with goals. Let's see what he can do on the final weekend. But yeah, Bournemouth. 0-2 loss. Andy, what's your thoughts?
So you already knew this game was going to be a little bit tough. Nathan Aka is still out with a groin injury, so I mean you don't have your skipper, your lead center back, so you already kind of felt like it was a little bit of a shaky start for Bournemouth, and it was a must-win game for them. I mean, there's still some implications that there's still the possibility of them getting out of this relegation, but now they're kind of reliant on a lot of other teams losing. So you definitely say that this is a game that they wanted to come in hot, and definitely pull out a result. But, Bournemouth had a couple chances early on with Stanislas and Josh King. So they definitely put the pressure on early. But then, in the 40th minute, you had Danny Ings who cut in from the left side onto his right, curling a beautiful goal into the right side, put them ahead a little bit. So they were up 1-0 at half. And then the 56th minute, there was a call on Harry Wilson with that handball. So that was unfortunate. Did cause a penalty, though. And Ings was up to take the penalty, and Ramsdale was able to save it and prevented him from getting his 22nd goal. So that was pretty nice, good save from him. Both sides created a couple more chances, and then obviously towards the end of the game in the 93rd minute, Bournemouth scores a goal. The goal ends up getting called back because Callum Wilson's in an offside position, just ever so barely. So just when they thought that they had the game tied, then you go over to the other side where you see Obafemi plays a nice ball over to Che Adams. Che Adams is near the penalty spot and just slams that one home and ends up being a 2-0 loss. So you really feel for Bournemouth. What are your takes on that game?
So Danny Ings on the score sheet. I say this every time he plays. He's got an 80% chance of scoring because it's just how he is. He's he's a Giroud-style striker in the Premier League. When the ball's at his foot, there's a good chance he's going to shoot. And strikers who shoot score. I hate to say it, but strikers who shoot score. So you definitely knew that was coming. When they went down 1-0, I kind of switched the game off for a little bit, and I was devastated because I thought it ended 1-0. And then I turned it on in the 80th minute, and I watched the last bit of the game, and I watched Southampton Bournemouth push. And there's been a lot of speculation, I think, about Bournemouth's effort and what they're putting on the, when it comes to like actual product on the field. And I think today they gave it their all. So you got to give them that. After watching the first half and the last 10 minutes of the game, the call was offsides. It was the right call. You hate to see it come back to replay when you've been watching soccer for years and that never happened. And now you see it and you're like, oh, well, before VAR, you can use that excuse for now. But I don't want to say Bournemouth deserved the point because you can't give up a late goal like that. And part of me feels like even if that goal goes in, Southampton would have done it anyways. Like, you know what I mean?
The second half was absolutely wild. I mean, they were both trading back and forth, just driving on each other. And Bournemouth looked like they had a couple goals coming their way with how hard they were pressing Southampton those last 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. So, I mean, Bournemouth definitely had the opportunities to pull it out. But, Southampton at the end of the day just kind of stuck it back a little bit more defensively and then played a little bit of counterattack, which is enough to catch a Bournemouth side off guard.
I think it's important to remember the form that Southampton's in. Them and West Ham and United are probably the top 3 form teams right now. So when you look at it like that, you can't sit there and say like, oh, Bournemouth should have got points. But at the end of the day, Southampton's going to ride it out. When Danny Ings gets on the scoreboard, like they're fine parking the bus and they're fine playing defense. I knew it would take a lot. Bournemouth have a lot of interesting things going on in their squad. Josh King, like you said, had a good game, driving. Interesting to see what happens with him in the offseason and Ake, because who knows what's going to happen if they go down. They have a tough way to stay up. They have Everton on the last day, which is probably one of the teams I'd want to play if I'm in relegation right now. But then again, Villa did it, didn't get a point, or didn't get 3 points, got a point. So they have too much to rely on to be comfortable. They have to be after today, they have to feel like they're going down. It's got to be a tough locker room to be in. We'll
they
see
need
where it
two
goes.
Villa losses, but Villa also plays Arsenal and West Ham. West Ham are hot in form. Arsenal are also hot in form. So it's still definitely possible for Bournemouth, but there's a lot that they have to kind of rely on in terms of the other fixtures and Villa losing. But Villa haven't been in great form since the restart either. Grealish has been a little bit non-existent in the past couple games. So I would assume West Ham and Arsenal can kind of see that out as well. But hey, it's the English Premier League. Anything can happen at this point. But all this talk about Bournemouth though, but take nothing away from Southampton. Southampton came in with an agenda. They played very well. And I will say that Ward-Prowse had one of the best games. He was the link man in midfield. He owned that entire midfield. Bournemouth just did not have an answer for him. There were a couple times where he was driving up to the defensive third in the neutral area. And then once they got into that area, he would place a couple great balls that just created opportunities for the rest of the team. So I think Ward-Prowse had a phenomenal game, as he may not have gotten on the score sheet, but he was probably the best player in that game, in my opinion.
And he rarely gets on the score sheet for Southampton, but I think it's important to me. I've said this we have a chat going on where all four of us talk and we share banter and we joke and we share our thoughts. Ward-Prowse to me is one of the most underrated midfielders in the Premier League for what he brings game in, game out to his team, because Southampton easily could have been in this relegation battle if it wasn't for Danny Ings. And having someone like Ward-Prowse there really goes a long way. And when he often owns the midfield when he's not playing against a top 6 team, to be quite honest. He kind of excels in that mid-table fight, which is good to see because, not everyone's going to be great against top 6 teams when they can single you out. But if you can perform against the mid-table teams, it goes a long way in connecting the defense to the offense. And he's great at that. And he great corner kick specialist, things like that. So he brings a lot to the table for them. When he has a good game, they often play well. I think you're right. It's important to mention that Bournemouth only have Everton, Watford, who just sacked their manager, are ahead of them. They're tied on goal differential with Villa. So if Watford play Arsenal and Man City and lose out, and if they don't even come close to scoring or their goal differential is not even there, there's a good chance that win against Everton might just be enough to keep them up. And then,
it is possible.
Yeah, and Villa play West Ham, who you don't want to play right now, and Villa play Arsenal, just like Watford. So Arsenal could be just party spoilers at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in saying that, let's go ahead and move on to the FA Cup final, who has Arsenal and Chelsea. Chelsea beat United 3-1 today, and Arsenal beat Man City yesterday 2-0. Do you have any quick takeaways from those games?
Yeah, Arsenal were very well set up in that City game. We often joke a lot about David Luiz and that back three, for Arsenal, but they had a very strong game. They were very well set up. They made very good decisions. David Luiz had a couple questionable tackles that, could have led to a yellow card, or he did get a yellow card, but that, could have potentially led to a red. But ultimately, they all had a really good game defensively. Aubameyang obviously got both of those goals. I know Tyler would be really hoping that he got those 2 goals in the Premier League to help him out with the Golden Boot race. But, all in all, it was a good result. Arteta came in with a good strategy. They held up City, who, were giving them a ton of offensive attacking pressure the entire game. So overall, positive results for Arsenal and Mikel Arteta's men. What about you?
Arsenal looked good enough. They don't normally counterattack, not their style, but they look good on it. They counterattacked well. I think Arteta knew what Pep was going to bring to the table after being his assistant coach for 3 years, and he used that to his advantage. City also looked unimpressive in the final third, so maybe 1 or 2 different shots. Laporte had a close one into the upper 90. So it wouldn't surprise me if I went to extra time or anything like that. But, that's how it panned out, 2-0. And then today we had Chelsea United 3-1. Yeah. But like I said, I think after you see Leicester lose right before that, maybe even right then that flip just switches and you're like, screw the FA Cup. We're trying to get in the Champions League. You know what I mean? Like it could have been that it could have been that back to back, But United did look a little, I don't want to say uninterested, but the squad that they put out wasn't their best squad. So it looked like a cup team, and that happens. And Chelsea, Giroud finishes like he always does. Mason Mount, weak goal. De Gea shouldn't have let that in. You watch that and you're like, just give me Henderson. But, so I think it should have finished 2-1, not 3-1.
Yeah, not the best result from United. But if you look at both sides and how they set up their team, they played probably about half their starters, mostly the defensive starters, and then they kind of mixed in a little bit of the midfield and the attacking a little bit, which is to be expected. I mean, United and Chelsea both have bigger deals in that finish for Champions League, and at the end of the day, the FA Cup, even if you win the FA Cup, you really would just qualify for Europa. So for really most of the clubs, it was more of a consolation, except for really Arsenal. So so you could definitely see that they both played sides that weren't exactly the first man roster, but still pretty close to it. So it wasn't like they weren't trying. But yeah, you have to just say David De Gea had a couple moments this game. The first goal was a great touch by Giroud and was able to put that one in the back of the net. It was a close enough deflection with not a lot of reaction time that De Gea had. So you could argue that he might have been able to save that one, but all in all, it was a good poaching finish from Giroud. And then, that one by Mason Mount where De Gea he tried to catch the ball, it looked like, instead of parry it. And I know De Gea generally has really good hands, so he can normally catch those type of balls. But if you're ever in doubt, you need to parry it away. Don't try these cute little catches or whatnot. So, and that put United back on their heels a little bit for a lot of the game. And you just kind of felt like United weren't really in the driving mood to kind of earn this game back. They put on all their starters, and it wasn't really working for us. But, credit to Chelsea. They played a very well defensive game, and they were able to hold it out. And then you kind of noticed towards the last 15 minutes of the game, both the teams were just kind of keeping possession and, just kind of chalked the game up. So, kudos to Chelsea. They had a good result, but ultimately there are bigger things going on in the Premier League, which if you can kind of tell that their motives were a little bit towards.
Definitely. And I think, like I said, I think it should have finished 2-1 Chelsea. Like, I think Chelsea, the poach goal went a long way, and the Mount goal right after halftime just hurt. So 2-1 would have been a good result for me. I didn't like 3-1 because the Mount goal shouldn't have gone in, But, yeah, they chalked it up. They definitely chalked it up in the last 15 minutes. And I think for us, it's time to chalk it up as well. It's been good. We have Arsenal and Chelsea in the FA Cup final. We have a juicy championship weekend. We have a lot happening as soon as on tomorrow in the Premier League. No big games tomorrow. Most of it kicks off on Tuesday. We have Aston Villa, Arsenal, Watford, Man City. And then we have Wednesday, Man U, West Ham. Before we leave, anything else you want to say? And you got who's going to win out on Tuesday, Watford or Aston Villa, or neither?
Watford? You know what? I think Aston Villa is going to pull out an upset because I think that the motive in the Watford dressing room was them sacking their coach, not playing that well. And, Villa have had a couple losing games. So I think that they're going to be a little bit fired up for this game. And, I'm going to say this. I'm not a big Jack Grealish fan, but I happen to think that maybe he scores a wonder goal in that game and is able to pull it out for Watford. But I just think that with the sacking of the manager, it's just going to be a lot to kind of overcome. Yeah. What do you think?
I definitely think Grealish and Villa have a chance of beating Arsenal, or at least drawing a point. Because Arsenal focus is just elsewhere. And then I think City are just going to tramp Watford and whoever they put in the coaching position. And then West Ham United, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, the big game's on Tuesday. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. Please follow us on YouTube at The Reserve Squad and on Instagram. Just go ahead and type in The Reserve Squad all together, no spaces. We hope you have a great week and hope you had a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Have a wonderful week. Next time we have this podcast, the Premier League is going to be wrapped up, and we're going to have all of the juicy topics and headlines for you. So be sure to check us out. Always great for you to stop by and join in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah. Have a good one, y'all.